Bonjour et bienvenue. My name is Damien B. Donnelly, je m'appelle Damien, and today I'm going to read some poems from my debut full collection, Enough, which was published by Hedgehog Poetry Press in August 2022. I'm reading this because recently it was Le 4 Juillet, the 14th of July, which is a national holiday in France. Enough is a poetry collection that is dedicated to the city of Paris. I moved there first when I was 22 until I was 24. Then I moved back when I was 40 and stayed for another 5 years. The collection itself is broken down into 6 sections, and I'm going to read one poem from each of those sections for you today. I'm going to start at the end and work my way back to the beginning, and one of the final poems in the collection is one I'm going to start with today. It's dedicated to this building. Sometimes when it's time to leave, there are signs, there are symbols, and there are events. This first poem is called When Notre Dame Came Falling Down. I'd started packing up places and folding them into pockets of dried time when I saw her burning. I was to the north of her centre at that time, upwind of the flames that were already ashes by the time they reached my tongue. I'd taken communion there, years earlier, taking the wafer onto that tongue that had yet to know the taste of ash. People came with novenas and cried as the stars turned on, as if caught by the flames below, and that river ran black, as if already in mourning. C'est comme si quelqu'un était mort, someone said, as I pulled tape over another packed box the river would carry downstream till it forgot its way back. They all stood there. On that street by the Seine where Le Bouquiniste sold fading books that smelt of death, while the ashes fell upon their heads, their eyes, their lips and their tongues. And so there we were, the grieving and the leaving, all of us open-mouthed, desperate for one last taste of what we had believed to be eternal. So this next short poem is from the Leaning Out section, the second to last. This is called That Which is Mapped Out from the Start. There was always an end. Even before we started to navigate time's talk. Listen. Hear it still winding back to that first tick. There was always an end. So this next poem is called Ça suffit, which means that's enough. It's from the moving section. Ça suffit. I remember rainstorms and running through straight lines on cobbled streets. Laughter carries louder under brollies, rises and falls back onto heads, onto faces, onto mouths, like that rain, those lips, like tongues that taste of sweat and surrender, and that something indescribable. That tiny space we save for later, when we admit to knowing while running that something was always missing. I remember rainstorms, and running through all those shut Sundays of grey roofs and terracotta pots, on steps that collected raindrops as if it knew already how much the memory meant after, later, when the sun came out and there were no more brollies to keep us together. I remember rainstorms, and running along all those boulevards as if they were battlefields and the droplets were bullets, and I couldn't remember how to say that's enough. in French. So the opening poem to the loving section is set in Au Chat Noir, the Black Cat. It is a bar in Ménilmontant in Paris in the 11th arrondissement, very close by to where I used to live on my second sojourn to Paris. This is where Spoken Word Paris takes place. So it is a spoken word event in the basement of Au Chat Noir every Monday night. This is called Temporary Things. Listen, she said. Delicious can die young. Enough can come without a warning. A scratch doesn't always have to leave a scar. Eternity is a temporary thing. And I heard. Now I store moments in between pages, where once I pressed flowers as the nights devour the stars, bleeding their way through this cloying space. Time is temporary, but experience counts for eternity. Even in basements, bleeding can be beautiful. I sip from the saucer of liquid lovers, soon to be ghosts lost to scent, who'll pour me in poetry after we've penned an ending I'll sing of in the beatnik basement of the Black Cat. I'll lay carefully those meanderings along these lines, lives that sparked a flame before moving on to the meniscus of someone else's milk. So the penultimate poem that I'm going to read for you today is called Georges. It's from the living section. It's set on the island of La Jatte, the Ile de la Jatte, which is to the west of Paris. And it is there in the 1800s, the late 1800s, that artist Georges Seurat, the inventor of pointillism, painted one of his most famous canvases and his largest canvas, Un dimanche après-midi à Ile de la Grande Jatte. Georges died at the age of 33. 2 weeks after he died, his young son passed away. And a few weeks after that, his wife, who had been pregnant at the time of George's death, had a miscarriage and lost what would have been his second child. This is called Georges. Colour. He saw colour in a park. A simple park on a Sunday. Colour captured in the summer. Colour. He painted colour in that park. Clear, considered, untampered colour. Specks of colour, rays of light in a park on a Sunday in a summer. In a season of details. In a salon of specifics under demands to cooperate. Colour. He saw colour. A canvas of colour and light. A carnival of colour on a park. On people. Simple people, working people, fishing people, fidgeting people, not polished people. Not posh people. They buried him in a park. Another park. A quieter park. Still with colour and light. They buried him. And then they buried his son. And then another. Life, then death. Father and sons. Children. And all that art. But only the art survived. And so, finally, we've arrived at the beginning. The last poem I'm going to leave you with is called 98 Rue Vieille du Temple, which means 98 Rue Vieille du Temple, which is the address of my first apartment in Paris. 98 Bouvier de Temple. On a Monday, a muse-filled Monday, a sky blue clarity carries, unlike the water in a single river, from sea back to source. The pace is steady, still stepping up on that spiral, but memory is mischievous and twists past a door long since shut. On a turret staircase, now strained with ideals where youth once lived. And I wonder if all the sunflowers I painted on its walls of other people's smoke stains are still visible under all the time that's grown over it. Considerations here today, after Van Gogh. After all the running from the reverb of those shots and the call of those crows that tried too hard to claw at the dream we sketched once beyond its walls. Merci beaucoup. My name's been Damien B. Donnelly. This has been Enough, published by the Hedgehog Poetry Press. See you again soon. A bientôt.